Hi, I just wanted to talk about what's going on. So, you heard about the mini budget, you're wondering whether to buy now, not to buy now. That's the questions. So, my name's Manda Walker and I'm the mortgage coach. And today I'm going to be talking to you about first the mini budget, then how it affects the mortgage market, and then what I suggest you consider doing. So, firstly, on the mini budget, as you all heard, first they talked about income tax. Now, originally, there are three brackets. You've got the 20%, the 40%, and the 45%. As of April next year, the 20 will be moving down to 19, the 40 will stay as it is, and the 45 won't be around anymore, so it will only be 40. Now, how does this affect everybody? Well, it means a lot more money in the economy. Obviously, all of those that were earning more and having to pay that extra 5% tax won't have to pay that. Now, 5% when you're looking at people earning sort of 150k is a lot of money. So there will be a lot more money in the economy. The other thing is, obviously, it's great that they're reducing the income tax for those in the basic rate from 20 to 19, but it is only 1%. And 1% of the basic rate is nowhere near as much as 5% of the upper, as is obvious. The next thing is, originally there was going to be changes to the corporation tax and national insurance, and that isn't changing. Everything is staying the same. So there were going to be increases and they're now not. So obviously that helps corporations under the corporation tax and limited companies because they also pay corporation tax, but it also helps those sole traders because of the national insurance and everybody else who pays national insurance. Now, the third thing that I'd like to talk about is stamp duty. Now, basically what stamp duty is the tax that you pay when you buy a property. Now, first-time buyers, in order to encourage first-time buyers to get onto the market, they have a stamp duty exemption, which means if you buy a property of a certain value, you don't pay stamp duty. Now, currently, if you buy a property that is 300k or less, then you don't pay stamp duty. Or if you buy a property of, say, 500,000, you only pay on the first 300,000. Now, what changed as soon as the budget was announced was that 300k went up to 425,000 and the 500,000 went up to 625,000. So basically what that means is before, if you bought anything 500,000, you were exempt for the first 300,000. Now, if you buy anything as a first-time buyer, so you've never owned a property before, then on the first 625,000, you get 425 as an exemption. So if you buy a property that's only worth 425, then you pay no stamp duty at all. Now, all of these changes were done in order to help the market. They're called fiscal policies when they're done by the government. But then you've got the government doing the fiscal policies in order to bring more money into the economy in order to keep it going, for want of a better word. But this has scared a lot of people, which is why the interest rates have gone up and they're continuing to go up. So a couple of things have happened. The Bank of England, who control the monetary policy, have, because they're worried about inflation, have been increasing the interest rates, which obviously affects the mortgage interest rates as well. And basically what happens is, well, what's been happening in the past sort of week or so, it's been absolutely manic, because what's been happening is products, i.e. mortgages, have been pulled off the market altogether. Interest rates with no notice at all, so with immediate effect, have been coming in at 4.5%, now 5%. When, you know, a few weeks ago, they weren't even 2.5%. So what does that mean for you first-time buyers? On the one hand, you've got an increase in stamp duty exemption. So before you were looking for a property for 300,000 in order not to have to pay stamp duty, but now you can look at a property for 425,000 and not pay stamp duty, which is great. But on the other hand, before you were able to borrow at 2.5%. Now it's 4.5%, and in some situations, depending on your credit, your situation, your loan to value, i.e. how much deposit you can put in compared to how much you're borrowing, it could be as high as 5.5%. There are some specialist lenders out there charging 7%. So you've got the stamp duty exemption, as I said, which is great. But what they're saying about the stamp duty exemption is when the original 300 came out and the 500 during COVID stamp duty exemption, what they said is this was only for a certain period of time. The 425, they're saying they're not putting a cap on the time. This will continue. So that makes you think, okay, then there's no rush. Maybe wait till the interest rates go down a little bit. If they do, if they don't continue to rise, then the stamp duty is still there, the 425k. But as you can see, every time we get a new chancellor or every time there's a change in government, actually the change in government, you know that the policies are going to change, but every time there's a change in chancellor, they should kind of be similar because they're from the same party. But as you can see in this situation, the chancellor has changed it quite radically, and maybe it was a little bit too much for people to handle and understand and explain, and it has affected the market quite radically. The pound is very, very weak at the moment, so if you are getting money from abroad or you're trying to trade or you're trying to do any of those things, it does affect the market. A lot of people are saying wait till the interest rates go down. Now, what I'd like to say about that is I haven't got a crystal ball, so I can't tell you whether they'll go up or whether they'll go down. But what the economists are saying is that the interest rate, the Bank of England interest rate by the end of next summer is looking to be between 6 and 6.5%, which means once the bank put their on top, it's 8.5%. Now, the reason why banks are putting their interest rates up so dramatically at the moment is, one, because obviously the Bank of England rate went up, but two, is because of swap rates. Now, originally, there weren't that many people buying houses. And what would happen is the banks would use the money that they hold. Now, when you save with the bank, you leave your money with that bank and they pay you interest on it. The reason they can afford to pay you interest on your savings is because while your savings are sitting there, they use it and actually lend it out to people who want to borrow and buy a house. But it got to a point where there wasn't enough money anymore. So people weren't saving enough in order for borrowing to happen. So before, the majority, quite a few years ago now, the majority were savers. They'd pay off their mortgage early and they'd be saving. They'd save in the bank. That was the way they wanted to save their money. Now it's completely the other way. There are more people borrowing and getting credit than there are people saving. So the banks have to supplement the difference by buying money. Now they buy money and they use a rate called the swap rate. Now, the swap rate is affected by the dollar, and it is affected by the fact that the pound is now so much weaker against the dollar, which means that banks are being charged a lot more for the money that they are buying in order to lend. Now, based on that, they obviously put the interest rates up in order to cover their costs and plus a little bit more, because obviously they're a business, they're not a charity, so they need to earn money to cover all their overheads, their staff, and obviously, one of the other things that has changed in the mini budget is the fact that bankers' bonuses have no cap anymore. So that's obviously something to note. Now, what I'm saying is it's very, very important to understand how all of this works. And what I would like to say to you is, if you want to understand more, I do have a Get Mortgage Ready membership. And this does talk about everything to do with mortgages, everything to do with finance. And it really does help you understand where your money goes and how it works in a mortgage. So if you want to do a handheld program for you to understand this stuff a little bit more. If you're thinking, you know what, I'm not ready to buy right now, I'm a little bit nervous about things, but I want to be proactive, then maybe this membership is for you. So I'll put the membership in the link. I hope you found what I've had to say useful. If you've got any questions, by all means, add them to the comments. I'd love for you to subscribe, if I could say that properly. And yeah, it would be great for you to watch more videos. And if you have anything that you'd like me to talk about in a video, by all means, I can talk about it. So just let me know in the comments, and thanks for your time. Take care. Bye-bye.